Now that you've written the methods and the results sections, we're going to write the discussion. Only 9 months later. My name is Dennis Eckmeyer. I'm a freelance scholar. I do science editing, science writing, as well as science communication and science advocacy. You can find the link to my website down below. Let me find a good place to record the rest of this. So let me give you an example of how I wrote a discussion in one of my own papers. You begin with a recap of the study and the context of the study. The first paragraph begins with, here we investigated modulation of synaptic input from olfactory sensory neurons, etc., etc. So I'm putting the whole thing into the context, reminding the reader of what they should have read in the introduction, but they might not have. So it makes sense to very briefly recap what this whole thing was about. Then I talk about the logic of the experiment by comparing the magnitude of blah blah blah. And then there comes the main result, surprisingly locus coeruleus stimulation in the absence of odors, etc., etc. And then there is a conclusion, thus the presence of odors, etc., etc. This is really a very brief recap of what the reader should have read in the introduction, the methods, and the results. People who actually read the whole paper and don't skim might get bored because they are reading this the third time now. On the other hand, this is how they remember things. It's supposed to be a reminder, and then you really point out the results that you think are the most important ones. And then I start with a narrow focus, talking about the results again. We were surprised to find that olfactory sensory neurons, etc., etc. And then I explain why we were surprised by these findings. There had been studies before, which should be cited, that led us into a different direction. In reality, there was an effect that we could not have predicted based on other people's results. And this is something worth mentioning. Then I talk about the results in a more narrow way. The role of granule cells in the noradrenergic modulation of mitral cells has been the subject of more intensive studies than the glomerular processes. So I already said, look, this very specific result has not been expected, and now I want to go towards the direction. So what does that mean? What does this new result, this new insight mean in a broader context? I've been talking about this detail in the previous paragraph, and now I'm talking about the role of the whole region. So this is how I move from a very specific context to a broader context in the discussion section. And the broader context for a neuroscience study is usually the behavioral part. So I end in the last paragraph with putting our findings into a behavioral context. Several forms of noradrenaline-dependent memories are accompanied by physiological changes in the main olfactory bulb. So I'm not just talking about the specific behavior that I was interested in when I started the study. I'm taking this whole question or this finding and move it into a broader context so that more people in the field will be interested in my finding and realize the importance for them, so that you will be cited. And most importantly, that you actually have brought the field forward. You might think, okay, here's the data. If this is important to somebody, they will find it, and then they will just look at the data and then understand, oh, this is important for me. No, I don't think that is necessarily the case. Explain your data, what they mean and what they don't mean too. Your readers should know in order for them to accept your data and your findings and try to include them into their own model of whatever research subject they are currently researching. What I think a good discussion looks like is a brief recap of what you've told the readers up to that point, and then you start discussing the results with a very narrow scope, and then you start putting your results and your conclusions into context with the existing literature, widening the scope more and more until at the end you can say something about the impact your findings have on the big picture issue. And then you conclude with a conclusion. And finally, you tell the field what you think should be done and how it should change people's thinking. If you would like the tutorial series as a PDF, you can download it from my website. The link is in the description box. If you are interested in future videos, please subscribe to the channel, press the bell, and you will be immediately notified. If you're interested in the previous videos of this tutorial series, please wait for the end card. There will be a link to the playlist. Leave your critique, your questions and suggestions in the comment section below. I'm happy to read it all. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. The